This is Adam Balderstone with Wuxia Weekend on the Bedrock Podcast. In this episode, we are talking about Iron Monkey, a Yuen Woo-Ping directed movie starring Donnie Yen about a masked hero standing up to a corrupt governor during the Qing Dynasty and encountering folk hero Wong Fei Hong as a child. So before we get into talking about the movie, Brendan has some gaming news to tell us.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention for Wuxia fans who like RPGs and stuff like that, Lewis Porter Jr. is putting out a PDF that I think is pay what you want called Zhao Island of Iron and Silk, and that should be coming out today. I just checked and I didn't see it up yet, but I think it's going to be up by the end of the day, and I'll try to post a link in the description below. But if you just go to RPG Now and look up Lewis Porter Jr. design, you'll probably be able to find it once it's out. And again, it's called Zhao Island of Iron and Silk. Lewis Porter Jr. I've seen him talk in bits about this, like hinting at it in the past, and it's always intrigued me. And he also has a clear interest in these kinds of movies and stories, and so I think that it's going to be an interesting game. I'm very interested to see what he ends up doing. So yeah, but let's get into the Iron Monkey discussion. What did people think of this movie before we really get into any of the plot or any of that?
I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a good movie. Another good Donnie Yen movie. I thought it was funny in certain parts, and it's always interesting to see the beginnings of a folk hero when they're young. So that was pretty cool. And I don't know, it had a little bit of comedy and very entertaining, and I enjoyed the fights.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, actually. I mean, this was just a perfect movie. Like you say, it had some good comedy in it. The action was fantastic. I wasn't aware of the Wong Fei Hong element of it when I started watching it, so it's kind of cool seeing that kind of evolve in the movie. And no, I have nothing but good things to say about this movie.
No, and yeah, I mean, I like this movie as well. It's been a while since I've seen it, and Adam, this was actually the movie that kind of keyed me into that character when I first saw it. So I remember seeing the version. I think it was probably the version that Tarantino put out, but I can't remember. But way back in the day, and I remember I think it was there was some kind of commentary track, and I think that's where it kind of pointed that out. And then I started noticing the character in other movies, and so it's kind of like a folk hero type thing. But the movie, I think it number one, the fights are really, really good. Like the fight scenes in this are exceptional. And I don't know, the story, the way it's shot, everything just kind of is nice. And I think, I didn't realize it, but I think we've done all Yuen Woo-Ping movies so far for the 90s, the 90s month, like, haven't we? Because we did Wing Chun.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that last night.
Yeah, and I was like, wait a second.
Right.
Have we done anything but you? And then I was like, oh man, we should have really mixed it up more. But in a way,
it turned out okay.
Huh? Yeah, it turned out fine.
We just retitled a month.
It was a double theme month.
Well, here's what it'll do. It'll allow us to revisit the 90s, because there are so many good 90s movies that we could talk about.
Sure.
So I really, really want to do Dead Full Melody if we can obtain it. It's a hard one to find. So, but Iron Monkey, I think this is definitely a really, really solid film, and I don't know what aspects of it did you guys like. What surprised you? What were some of the things that? Because I mean, I don't know, Adam. Did you really didn't know what to expect going in? I'm assuming so.
No, I didn't. I mean, it's got really lively characters. I mean, every character in the movie is very distinct and has a lot of feeling. I mean, the governor character as a villain is great, and I really like I'm sorry, but I'm blank on his name. The guy who's the head of security. That's kind of
Chief Fox.
In the middle.
Chief
Fox. That's it. Fox. I knew it was something simple. Fox is just great as this character who's stuck working for the governor. But he's a pretty decent guy overall, and they did a good job of setting his character up throughout it. And I just everything about this worked perfectly. I mean, the whole kind of Zorro theme, and yeah, it's just and having the child kind of become important as the movie goes along too was nice as well.
Yeah, I think he's really good with characters and martial arts. Like any movie where it's like
Yeah,
character heavy like this and martial arts, like the Chief Fox character really sort of stands out because he turns out to kind of be a better guy than you initially like. He doesn't ever really leap out at you as being terrible, but
I
he
kind of clued in that he was kind of a good guy early on, but it's
yeah.
like that's an easy thing to make very obvious, but it was enjoyable kind of watching the progression in this.
Yeah, I enjoyed the progression of, I guess the villains kind of got worse as we went. You start out with Chief Fox, who really wasn't that bad. He's just following orders, but he doesn't follow them thoroughly. And, he's not really, he could have captured Iron Monkey, but he's not really trying that hard. And then you have the chief government official, and he's just crazy about his 9 wives. How do you take care of 9 wives? And I mean, they were interesting bunch. And then, the monks that are no longer monks are even worse than he is. And then eventually you get the real baddie. And he's not introduced early in the movie. And I like that we don't know who the ultimate bad guy is. It's kind of like in a game when you go level to level to level and you get the worst villain at the end. And that's what I liked about this.
Yeah, I like the fact too. It's like this government official is coming. So like I said, you don't see the character to the end, but you've got this anticipation coming, and when the character does show up, he is a really great villain. So he fulfills the build up that you had throughout the movie.
Yeah, the villain in this, I mean, what is it? Yen Shi Kwan who plays him. I think he was the guy from Swordsman too. He plays a lot of bad guys, and he I don't know he was so terrible. But I really liked. I don't know what her name was. I don't even know if she had a name. In one of the credits, they called her White Eagle, so that's what I'm going to call her. But the ex nun, I guess, with the like wine, it looked like a wine stained birthmark on her face, or possibly scarring from fire. Because I thought it might have been from Shaolin Temple burning or something like that. But her character's the one that I really ended up liking this time around the most, just because
She's good. Yeah.
well, she's so vicious, and her movements were all so sharp and like like eagle like she had a real like snappiness to her movements that just looked cool to me, and I liked the disfigured face and all that stuff. I liked how the Hin Hung monk character stole the wives of the governor. That was a pretty nice move, and also I liked the wives being the motivating factor for the governor to like hoard all the food and try to jack up the price, because they all want to have they all want this luxurious life, and so we see them pressuring him to oppress the people so that they can have nice things. It was a playful sort of scenario, and I don't know. I just the governor, he was bad, but like you said, he wasn't. His all of his needs were very basic. It seemed like he just
Yes.
wanted to please his wives. It's not until you get to the head monk that things get truly villainous, and you're dealing with like poison palms and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's just the early governor is just petty. He's just just this little petty grifter kind of character.
Now, what did you guys think of Physician Yang and his assistant Miss Orchid?
I liked the couple. I thought I liked seeing her backstory and how they kind of got together. Her working in a brothel and having a baby, and the baby dies, and he pays to set her free, and that indebted her to him. But somewhere along the way, he taught her martial arts,
Yeah.
and she fell in love with him, and he fell in love with her. And you could tell that they were a couple from the very beginning, just the way they interacted with each other, especially on the roof in the rain, where she where he said, was it that you came out tonight and in the rain, and she was like, you otherwise if I hadn't come you would hurt yourself or something like that. So it was like they were a really cute couple.
Though
I wanted to have
go ahead.
I wanted to have a little twist because Wong Fei-hung was getting so attached to her later in the movie, and she was becoming attached to him because of the loss of her baby. So, you just kind of wanted to veer another way so that they could be a happy little family.
Oh,
and she could have a baby, but it works out differently.
Well, yeah, I toyed with that.
I got the impression that they weren't really officially a couple yet, too. That they were still kind of shy about the whole thing, and so a lot of the stuff you were talking about, like in the rain, was sort of the beginning of that phase of their relationship. And I think that's why there were occasional moments where they almost hinted at a potential love triangle between her and Wong Kar-ying. So I mean, it was very, very brief moments. It wasn't anything substantial, but there were like glances. But yeah, I don't know. What about the scene where they go into the governor's residence, masquerading as the royal minister and his assistant, and just sort of pull the wool over the governor's eyes?
That scene I thought was hysterical because the actors that are playing the phonies are so exaggerated. You can obviously, well, for us, we can obviously tell that it's a woman and we know who the characters really are. But the way they over exaggerate all their movements and their lines. And I like the one line that he said to the governor about politics and letting go and all that. I can't remember exactly what the line was. Then the governor, when he loses everything, kind of shrugs it off and repeats the line that the phony royal official says and keeps walking out of town. I thought that was a nice complete circle.
Yeah, I liked the way they were acting. Like I say, it was very over the top and comedic, but it was also so forceful too that it kept everyone else kind of off their guard. They were kind of forced to keep reacting to people, so they didn't have a chance to really properly question them or anything. So it was like their behavior was like a good tactic and funny at the same time.
Well, and the excuse they came up with the Iron Monkey, so that was brilliant, because that was the one thing that was gonna really seal the deal there.
I liked how.
Oh, go ahead.
I liked how, also in that scene, how each person was asked, "Well, did you check his credentials?" And they keep going, "No, I'm just a lowly officer," and they pass it on to the next person. The governor's afraid to ask, and then finally they get up the nerve to ask, where's your royal seal? And he looks in his briefcase and he's like, who put the Iron Monkey in the and then he accuses everybody, and then it's just so funny from there.
Oh, and just so you know, Dean, I think you might be getting a little bit of something on your mic there.
Okay.
There was like a little distortion for a moment. But yeah, what do you guys think of Wong Kar-ying? And when he comes to town, he kind of ends up sort of being pitted against Iron Monkey initially because he's mistaken for him. They end up arresting everybody who does anything vaguely monkey-like in the city, or who could at all possibly be Iron Monkey. So some guy sneezes, and the way he's moving his hand, they come up and they grab him. And some other guy is selling monkey powder, but when a person tells him to, don't mention monkey, he won't tell the guards what he's selling, and they get suspicious and they take him in. And Wong Kar-ying gets brought in because he gets in a fight, and he's spectacular. So they this guy could be Iron Monkey, and he ends up the whole thing is kind of a setup to get Iron Monkey to go to the palace. And then when he does show up, Wong Kar-ying fights him, and this ends up putting him at odds with all the people in town, because everybody loves Iron Monkey because, like you said, he's like a Zorro sort of vigilante type, and Wong Kar-ying can't even get a bun in town now. He's but just I kind of want to talk about his introduction in that way, but also just his character. He's a very sort of stern, fatherly figure in this movie, and I was just curious what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I like kind of the complexity there. It's like, it's not like they were trying to make him look like a bad guy or anything, but he was really super strict. That they kind of it just gave him a level of realism there, and it pays off well in the scene where he's telling his son not to cry while he's turning his back as he's trying to hide it himself.
Oh,
So it was a
real men shed blood before they shed tears. Is that which kind
that
of
was
brings
his
back "Heroes Shed No Tears"?
yeah. No, I thought it was a very, very well done character. I mean, it doesn't. It's just kind of a nice character trait with the severity. They don't really make a point with it or anything. It's just kind of there.
Yeah, I like the introduction and that the two had to fight each other at the beginning because you don't necessarily know how Donnie Yen's character is gonna end up in the end, and he eventually just pretty much gets blackmailed into having to arrest the Iron Monkey, which then his son ends up sick, but they rescue him, so that's a good thing. But yeah, he was really strict as a father, not taking his son's hand when he obviously wanted to because he was feeling unsure, and every time he did something wrong, tapping him on the head and everything. But they really didn't harp on that. And then you got the softer side of him and sneaking food during the scene with Miss Orchid with the hot peppers. I thought that was funny. That he's sneaking food and he doesn't know they're extremely hot peppers. But yeah, so I think it was a nice balance of the strict and the comedic with his character.
Well, and you get the impression he's trying to prepare Wong Fei Hong for life, and so that's why he's being strict with him. He doesn't have a mother, so he's if he dies, he's on his own. So I think he's trying to make sure that he is as self-sufficient as possible by the time that sort of thing happens. But yeah, no, I quite liked their relationship, and I thought that it was he was strict, but even when he was hitting him in the head, he was trying to it was because he was trying to recite the different herbs and their uses, and he wanted him to master them all. So it was it wasn't like he was just sort of randomly slapping him or
No.
Yeah. And both being doctors was an interesting, well, at least knowledgeable about medicine was an interesting thing too. When you have the whole argument at the dinner where they're getting into the argument about whether or not he can eat duck or not. That was a nice little second battle that they had between them.
No, that's actually a very memorable scene, and I don't know why. Maybe just because the duck leg looks so delicious. It just is.
It does.
But something with these movies, they do a really good job. Because in a lot of, at least up until recently, a lot of Hollywood movies, they would use the old food. Do you know what I mean? They would never use legitimate food, and a lot of this stuff looks freshly prepared. So.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just getting over a stomach bug, and so I'm still just eating mainly rice, and so it's just I haven't had a good meal since the last weekend. So I'm just looking at this food, going, oh, I can't. It was painful for me.
But yeah, I that was sort of an interesting sort of sparring at the table over the best treatment option for the son, I guess, and best diet. I would be inclined to say the duck is okay, but I can also sort of understand not letting him go crazy. He's supposed to be learning martial arts and medicine, so maybe he wanted to be more restrained. But yeah, speaking of martial arts, what do you guys think of the fights?
I thought the fights were great. My favorite was at the end when they're battling the mean monk, but and he has his cloth that he uses to strike out at people and grab them, and Iron Monkey has it and he's holding it taut, and then Wong Kai-ying is walking on it. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
That was like my favorite part.
there's a lot of cool like lightness scenes like that, and the whole thing where they end up on the poles and it's
Oh
Hmm.
a fire
yes.
underneath them. That's that was a pretty crazy scene. And a very
Yeah.
memorable. That was honestly that was one of the few things I remembered clearly about the movie before I watched. I remembered that. I remembered the thing with the chili when he was eating the chili when she was cooking, and a few other key details like that. But for some reason that end fight scene really stands out.
Yeah, I'd say every fight scene in this movie was exceptional, unless I'm forgetting something, because it just they all were just completely engaging for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh go ahead.
I even liked how Chief Fox wasn't a poor fighter. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes how they make the lackey really a poor fighter and he gets
Hmm.
beat pretty often or pretty easily. But he got in a couple of good fights
Yeah.
also during the movie. And I liked how it was distributed among the people.
In a
Yeah,
way he was kind of the bravest of them because he's the one that really like resisted the monk when they were trying to harm Wong Fei Hong when they had him prisoner, and he's probably the last person who should be doing that sort of thing,
Hmm.
out of all the adults in the movie. And so and if they hadn't intervened he probably would have been killed. So that he definitely I think gets a lot of respect for his bravery. And also, he added a sense of humor. There was a moment where somebody bribed him. They handed him some gold, and he said, "Hey, you don't bribe me in the open."
In open.
Yeah,
And then he stuffs it in his pocket.
and the shark fin soup. The governor tells him not to eat the shark fin soup, and there's some question of whether the shark fin soup splashed him in the face or whether during the fight or whether he actually ate it. But he's an interesting guy, and also he's got that weird mark on his forehead, and he had mentioned that like we kind of get hints that he might know who Iron Monkey is and be letting him go deliberately. At first, you think it's due to just incompetence, but as the movie goes on, you start to think, "Oh no, he's legitimately like really letting this guy go." And
Yeah.
he
Yeah, the
mentions,
first
"Oh, go ahead."
so yeah, the first time he brings it up, I was completely sure. Oh, he's just blustering, whatever. But yeah, it changes over time.
And he's got that mark, and he mentions that he must have some connection to him from a previous life, and so I was wondering if that mark was an indication of something that happened between them. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe
Hmm.
maybe he got stabbed in the head by Iron Monkey for doing bad things in the last life, and now that's why he's enmeshed with him in this way. I don't know, but because it's never explained and it's never even really commented on. I think. Um,
Yeah, I actually did not notice that too much.
was
So
I maybe I was crazy, Dion? Was there a mark on his head?
No, I thought that there was some kind of mark on his head, but I just didn't attribute it to being anything in the movie. I thought maybe it might have been a birthmark of the real actor, so I didn't kind of pay too much attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, I could be way off here. I could be way off. It
it's
was
an
just
interesting theory.
wondering. Um, but yeah. So and then there's the what do you call it? The sea. Like one of the things that's going on here is that the population is hungry and there's all this turmoil and people are moving to the city to find themselves being brutalized by the Shaolin monks who should be protecting them and by officials and so they're resorting to cooking bark for making bark soup. And so Iron Monkey has really won over the population, and the governor is you know he's he's there's like a big part of the story is that he is hoarding the food and he is not releasing it, and he's just doing it to raise the price. So we have this one scene where they incorporate the food into the fighting. I don't know if you remember the scene where they have the grain sacks and I thought that was a pretty well put together fight scene. I think that's actually the one where where White Eagle first really ends up getting into a skirmish with them, but I could be wrong. Oh, go ahead.
No, I believe you're right. I think that is the first one. That's all I have to
Oh,
say.
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I'm trying to think if we what about all of the rooftop sequences? What do you guys think of those? Because
Um,
there was a lot of action on the rooftops. I felt in this movie.
like as I said, I thought all the action was fantastic. I mean, yeah, the rooftop scenes work really well. They just flow very nicely. And I mean, it works with with kind of with kind of the masked hero kind of genre they were going with. I felt
Mm.
like having stuff on the rooftops kind of added to
It was
that
necessary.
masked hero feel. So it was a nice touch.
Yeah. One thing I liked about the fighting was I felt like the the personalities really came through with the styles in this one. Like that's usually the
Mhm.
case, but here it felt like a little bit more visible. So like you just had like every like all of the characters' personalities were pretty well expressed in the way that they fought. Where so like you have like especially when you have like the Hin Hung fighting against Iron Monkey and Wong K Ying. It's a but also like White Eagle, like I mentioned, and some of the other characters.
Yeah, you could feel White Eagle's ferociousness coming through her crisp, snappy moves. I mean, she was really, really good. It made me wonder if it was really her or if it were a stunt double doing the moves. I mean, her movements were just really powerful. I thought I really liked her style.
Yeah, I wasn't paying close enough attention to see if they were cutting away from people and when a stunt double was stepping in, but I got the feeling they tried to. I think the actors were moving as much as they could keep them moving. I think that's why they hired because like the girl that they had play Wong Fei Hong, it was like a wushu star of some kind, and so I think I think they were going for trying to keep everybody in the action. But there were a few moments where it was kind of hard to tell. But like in the scenes where you did see her face and you saw her moving, it looked like it was
Hmm.
probably her. And I thought she was really good. And even what's her name, Miss Orchid. She had that cool like backflip kick that she did when her
Hmm.
and Wong Fei Hong were attacked by the monks. That
Mhm.
was a pretty good scene too. I like even like Wong Fei Hong just as a kid with the staff is going around and schooling people. And the movements were so precise. Like I really liked the precision of the movements and the stances. Like every little detail kind of, like characters would end in a stance and it would really be an impressive, just sort of, uh, motion. Um,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It was like this. I mean, the actual action choreography in this was fantastic, but the direction too of filming it was also it just really
Hmm.
came together well in this
yeah.
scene. I mean,
Yeah, because it looks like it really looks nice. Like even just the way, even like the wood tone of the doctor's office outside, something about that just worked. I don't know what it was, but it it just had a nice sort of like something about that and the light coming through in the morning just really had this amber glow
Hmm.
that was effective. But yeah, so I don't know. Were there anything? Was there any stuff you didn't like about this movie? Were there any quibbles or any, you know, anything that at least upset you or bothered you?
as I said at the beginning, I can't think of anything bad to say about this movie. I just enjoyed this on every level. So
I would totally agree. I would have watched this movie a lot sooner than I did. I a lot of times when I almost watch it, it was because the title is Iron Monkey, and there's a movie from 1977, and then sometimes, occasionally, sites would mix it up. They would have the title, but they would have the synopsis wrong, and I would click on it. and this would be the movie that would come up instead of the 1977 one. So I never bothered to watch it until now. But I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a really good, well put together. The action, the directing, the acting, the choosing of the actors and the actresses. I couldn't imagine anyone else in these roles now that I've seen it. They made a really good choice, and I was very invested from the beginning of what happened with each one of the characters, including Chief Fox.
I thought
I really liked him. I thought he was really cool.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
He was like the show stealer, I guess, in this movie.
Definitely.
Well, he was. I don't know how to put it. He just was somebody. He was the one that you would want to have the beer with in the group. You know
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be very careful about having beers with everybody else in the group. Actually, thinking about it.
But yeah, I mean, it goes back to what you're saying that because he is he is someone trying to do good, but he is the one guy who, well, as pointed out, he had some fighting skill, but he isn't this great hero. He's just this relatively ordinary guy trying to do the best he can. So
he's in a very difficult spot too. I mean, it's a horrible position to be in, and it doesn't look like there's any end to this corruption. It looks like it just goes all the way up the like a new governor arrives at the end, and they're hopeful, like, oh, hopefully this guy will be less corrupt, but I have a feeling, it's
I like the total ambiguity at the end. They don't tell you either way. You probably know how it's going to work out. We're not going to say.
But is there an Iron Monkey too?
There is, but it's Donnie Yen playing Iron Monkey. So
okay.
It's what did you? Since we've done all Yuen Woo-Ping movies this month, how does it compare to the other? Now, keep in mind, this is also sort of a special Miramax release, so it does have a somewhat slicker presentation. But how would you say it compares to the other Yuen Woo-Ping movies that we saw?
Let me see. What have we watched again this month? They're all starting to blur together.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. So Tai Chi Master was one, and we also saw Wing Chun, right? I'll in fact get the list just to make sure I'm correct here. But
yeah, and Wing Chun, I have to qualify when I'm comparing these that I did see a dubbed version, so I'd probably put that last. But if I saw it subtitled, it would probably rank in a better position. But as it is, I would say they've gone up every week in my ranking.
So it's been a steady
climb.
Yeah, okay.
Like I said, Wing Chun has not been fairly judged by me because I haven't seen it with subtitles.
I would have to agree with Adam. Out of the three, I would probably put Wing Chun last, just because we did watch a dubbed version, and I tend not to like the dubs. I think the dubs lose something in the translation, and the sounds of the voices irritate me a lot.
Okay.
But I still like Tai Chi Master because I still have that same reaction to it the second and the third time I've watched it, which my reaction is always, I don't like Shin So-ho very much in this movie, so I have to always go back and watch another one of his movies where I really like him in order
just to remind yourself that he's a good guy.
Yes.
Right? You have to become friends again. So and I say too, I liked Wing Chun a lot too. So me saying they're getting better and better, it's not like that was down at the bottom somewhere. The fact that it's gone up every month is impressive.
Well, and these are all really good films. I mean, and they're all kind of similar in terms of like the style of how they're shot, how the fights go, and so it can be a lot of it is a very subjective thing. I would tend to favor Tai Chi Master, but again, that might be nostalgia. Do you know what I mean? That might be it's a close
call. I mean, they're both very good movies, and I like with both of them too that they both are not entirely predictable either
Yeah.
through a lot of the movie. It's like they both feel like they're setting up very much a formula, but there's enough variation going on that they feel very fresh when you're watching them.
And I will say, I think that Iron Monkey probably is more popular than either of the other two.
Hmm.
And so so it's most people probably would agree with your assessment of these movies. I think with Wing Chun it gets complicated because there aren't many good versions of it floating around anymore, and so it tends to be more grainy when you see it, and like you were saying, the dub can affect it. So that can definitely be an issue. If it had a crisper look, maybe it would fare better in these discussions. But I would go with Tai Chi Master largely because you get both Jet Li and Michelle Yeoh, and that's the
Yeah.
but also that movie hits me at an emotional level that Iron Monkey doesn't. Iron Monkey gets me emotionally too, but not in the way that Tai Chi Master does.
Yeah.
You got a
'Cause
good point. Yeah. I mean, and of course, it is also me reviewing it just coming off the buzz of just watching Iron Monkey. So
it's
that's also a slightly unfair weight it has on it. That I'm still like, yeah, that was a great movie I watched today.
well, one of the things that can I think Iron Monkey probably is just objectively the more well received movie.
Uh-huh.
But also these things fluctuate over time if you watch these things.
Oh yeah.
I find myself constantly changing my opinion on which movie from which person or director I prefer. Every once in a while you'll land on a film that you just never tire of, but that's tough. I will say
Yeah.
this: it's been many years since I saw Iron Monkey, and when I was watching, I was like, "Why has it been so many years since I saw Iron Monkey? It's ridiculous that I've gone this long without watching it again." So this is definitely a good movie. It's and it's and again we do get sort of the edited down version in the States. We're missing some scenes and stuff like that, but it's got a lot of different things going on that really work. Again, I think the fighting, the humorous scenes. It's not quite as heavy on the humor in the American version as say Tai Chi Master was, but
Mhm.
the humor really works. We get some real like that scene that I think we all agreed the royal minister scene was top notch.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and the acting, the selection of the cast was good. Um, and I think again, it's one of these movies where you really care about the characters.
Yeah.
And I think Yuen Woo-Ping, he's deceptively simple about how he achieves that because like you don't it's not like a really in-depth character study. Do you know what I mean? It's not like something where it's like, oh, I've probed the soul of this character, but he
No.
brings them to life and you care about them. And I think a lot of times it's just finding the right actor for the role and the right situations and even the right costuming and all that. But but yeah, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
I was
Uh,
gonna.
Sorry.
I was
Go ahead.
just gonna say. I think bringing in the right amount of the background story from each of the characters, or the most important characters, also helps too. I think the telling of Miss Orchid's background, how she hooked up with Dr. Yang, was very important to the overall story.
No, no, definitely, and it also kind of I'm guessing that's why she's named Orchid too. Like it kind of like you sort of make that connection when you see the story, and and also that was kind of a theme running through because they mentioned that brothel a lot, and they caught the monks trying to abduct a woman and take her to the brothel. So there was,
Hmm.
that was definitely a thing, and I think I could be wrong, but I could have sworn the one of the writers was also the woman who wrote Wing Chun. In fact, let me check that just to make sure, because I think it's yeah, Elsa Tang was one of the writers, um, and I think there was some of those same themes in there. Um, but yeah, I don't know. But I really do think like there's just something about these Yuen Woo-Ping movies where it's the characters and the martial arts and the location. It's kind of I think we said something similar about Lau Kar Lung when we were talking about My Young Auntie, where it's all kind of shot in one location, and you don't really need that sense of movement over great distances to enjoy yourself. You're kind of you're content to stay in that one place with those characters. You don't like a lot of times. If I'm watching a movie with the same group of characters for too long and they don't go anywhere, I feel like I got to get out of here. You know what I mean? Like we got to go somewhere. Yeah. Somebody new needs to show up, but you don't get that feeling in this movie.
No, it's. I mean, there's just a really nice feel to this movie overall to an extent. I mean, like, Iron Monkey being this character who's also a doctor, and it's very. I thought that was a nice choice for secret identity. Him basically getting to be a do-gooder by day and a do-gooder by night, and kind of worked well. And I liked when they went to rescue the kid. They just did it straight as him going as a doctor to look after and check on the kid was just a nice, because I was all ready for, here's the big prison breakout scene. And then the approach they took was, I was like, oh, that's just really, it just, the Iron Monkey character is so smart that it just, his approaches to things. That was a good example of it.
And I suspect the governor's probably already forgotten about the kid at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He never brings it up again. He's like, where's that kid I had locked up? It's like, nope, left his brain the second he did it.
Yep. So I don't know, any other thoughts on the film before we head out?
No, it's a really good movie. Just go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and then it is available on Amazon, but you have to rent it or buy it, but it's not that expensive, and it's totally worth. I have it on Blu-ray. The Blu-ray is great. I would definitely get it on Blu-ray if you can. But if you want to rent it for like $3, definitely take a shot. Yeah. All right, so we'll be back on next week with The Blade, right? That's our next film, I believe. And until then, we will talk to you later.